This is page 43 in our notes. My colors today are blue and green. Today we're going to talk about the formulas that were on the Georgia worksheet, and we'll continue to work with those on this test and the next one. So the formulas that we're talking about, there's variables used and you have to plug numbers in. So with the formulas, we've got volume, and that's labeled units. Cubed, when we spelled that out, looks like that. Why is it cubed? There are 3 dimensions with volume, 3D, 3 dimensions. Those dimensions would be your length, your width, and your height. So I'm going to use my other color here to box in volume. You always label your answer as unit cubed, and then the 3 dimensions would be your length times your width times your height. And yes, those letters are in cursive. That's normally how you would see them. The other thing we're going to talk about is area. In area, we label that units squared. We call that squared. You always label your answer squared. This has 2 dimensions. And that's just your length and your width. Area could also be base and height, so I'll put length and width. Sometimes you call that base and height. So with these formulas here, the first example we're going to do is number 6 from the Georgia worksheet, and they give you this formula, and it says V, capital V, equals L times W times H. I'm using the dot for times. So that's the formula. So this is volume, and it equals length times width times height. So what that means is they're going to say, well, what if your length equals 2, your width equals 3, and your height equals 4? Then what would your volume be? So what you need to do is you need to put these numbers in for these particular letters, and with math we call these variables. So you just plug these numbers in to where these letters are at. And then with this particular formula, you take your length times your width times your height, so then you're going to multiply your 2 times your 3 times your 4. If the formula said to add them, then you would add these numbers. This formula, in order to calculate the volume, you're going to put 2 right under the L, because that's what you're plugging in for L, and then you're timesing it by the width, which is 3, and you're timesing it by the height, which is 4. Oh, not H, which is 4. Sorry about that. Your height is 4. So 2 times 3 times 4. 2 times 3 gives you 6, and 6 times 4 equals 24, and you're going to label it units, and then this is volume, so volume you label it cubed. There are 3 dimensions there. So that's what you do with those particular numbers, and you just substitute them in for those variables. So with the formula, you just have to follow what the formula says to do, and then that's what you do with those numbers. So let's try a different formula. What if they give you the formula like on question 7 on the Georgia worksheet, and the formula is capital V for volume equals capital B next to an H. And if you remember, anytime you have variables next to each other, that means multiply. The capital B is the area of the base, and then your H is your height. So a lot of people are like, but I thought volume was 3 dimensions. It is. In order to get the area of the base, they're already taking the length times the width. So in order to get the area of the base, they're already taking length times width, and they already multiplied those, and then they just give you the one number, and then you go ahead and take it times the height. So what if I give you the area of the base, which equals 6, and the height equals 4? How would you solve this formula? Well, you need to read the formula. In order to find the volume, what you need to do is take the area of the base times the height. Remember, this is implied that this is multiplying because they're right next to each other. So the area of the base is 6. So I'm going to write it again. Volume equals area of the base times the height. So what do I need to plug in for the area of the base and for the height? These numbers right here that they're telling me. If area of the base equals 6, height equals 4, 6 times 4 equals 24 units. And then this one would be, since it's volume again, you need to make sure it's cubed when you label volume. So it's very similar to the last problem we did. The 2 times 3, the length and the width for the area 6, they kind of already gave that to you for the capital B on this particular problem. So those are very similar. The 6 times 4 is basically what they did here. Sometimes they'll give you all 3 numbers, and sometimes they'll go ahead and give you the area of the base, and you just have to multiply it by the height. How did you know to multiply? Because they were next to each other, so that's what that formula means. Let's try another one. This is also coming from the Georgia worksheet that we're using. What if they say capital V equals S to the third power? Or they call this volume equals the side length, and you're going to cube it, which means you take side times side times side. So what if the side length, S, equals 5? What if S equals 5? What do I do here? Then right here under this, in order to calculate the volume, I have to plug in a 5 here for S, but then I have to cube it. So that means 5 times 5 times 5, and that equals 125 units, and I'm going to cube it because we're finding volume. So what if I change the problem? Same formula, but instead of S equaling 5, what if I said S equals 3? How does this change the problem? So kind of a little wavy line here. Same idea, same formula, but now the side length changes to 3. How does that change the problem? Well, here's your formula. Volume equals side cubed. But now you're going to put in volume equals, instead of a side right here, you're going to put in a 3 right here and cube that, which means 3 times 3 times 3, and that is 27 units cubed. So that would be your different answer with a different number you plug in. Same idea, same formula, just a different number. So you're going to have some things like this on your test. So I want to make sure you've seen these formulas and that you understand what they mean. Formula number 9, this one's on your test, so make sure you write this one's on your test. This one here is capital A for area equals 6 next to an S, which is squared. When a number and a variable are next to each other, that means multiplied. So a better way to write this is 6 times S squared. And then I'm going to tell you that your side length is going to equal 3. So how do you solve this? Well, you need to plug in 3 right up here where there's the S. So you need to take 6 times the 3 squared. So what do? Do you multiply or do you do the exponent first? Well, if you think about PEMDAS, do you multiply or do you do the exponent? Exponent comes first and multiplication comes second. What do I mean by that? You're not going to take 6 times 3 and then square it. You need to take your 3, square it first, which is 9. Bring down multiplication and bring down 6. 6 times 9 is 54 units. Now this is area, A, so you square it at the end. So this is on my test, and what's the most common thing that kids do to miss this problem? They will take 6 times 3 and get 18 and then try to square that, and that is incorrect. You don't multiply. You have to remember to solve the exponent first, and then you're going to multiply. I'm going to do another example of something that you're going to see on your test, and this one, question 10 that I want to give you. The formula says area equals 1/2 next to a B next to an H. And anytime the things are right next to each other, that means you're supposed to multiply 1/2 times the base times the height. This is actually the area of a triangle. So what this means, a better way to write this is 1/2 times the base times the height. And what if I give you a base of 2 and a height which is equal to 3? How do you solve that formula? You need to plug these numbers in up here for these particular letters or variables in math. So I need to take 1/2 and I need to multiply it by what's my base number and then what's my height. What are these numbers I need to plug in? 2 is for the base and 3 is for the height. So your base and your height. It doesn't matter what way you multiply these. You could take 2 times 3 first and get 6 and say, well, what's half of 6? 2 times 3 is 6. Half of 6 is going to give me 3, and you would call that 3 units squared because it's area. Area of a triangle, which we learn in the geometry unit. Area of a triangle. Let's go like this with a right triangle here. You actually take base times height, and then you can divide it by 2 at the end, which is basically what we did. Base times height. Dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal, which would be 1/2. So multiplying by half or dividing by 2 are the same thing.